Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 podcast. Today it is the 18th of July, 2022. And on today's show are the Pac-12 and the Big 12's cultural differences too much to get over. If they were to have a merger, the Big 12 would take some of their teams. Doesn't really matter at all. Some of you seem to think so. I'll give my opinions on the matter. Also, some comments from Greg Sankey today at SEC Media Day about when OU and Texas might leave the Big 12. And also the priorities of bigger conferences with conference realignment, also how much money conferences make. So a whole lot to get to on today's show.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 podcast, July 18th, 2022. We are brought to you today by our friends at LinkedIn. Best place to find a job and post a job. You should have a LinkedIn account for sure. So LinkedIn, we're very happy they're sponsoring the show. Thank you all for making Locked On Big 12 your first listen every single day. Make sure you guys find us on Twitter at LO Big 12. You guys can find me at Josh Neighbors _. You guys can find the show wherever you get your podcast, and here on YouTube as well. Make sure you guys subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,400 subscribers. We're on the way there right now. Goal is going to get 2K by the start of the college football season. Also, main mic missing today. Got to get a cord replacement, so we're using the Yeti mic. Hopefully, there is not too much of a sound drop-off and everything sounds good. Okay, so we've been talking so much about conference realignment. I just want to say something here before we really get going about NIL and conference realignment, the transfer portal and whatnot. I thought Richard Johnson on the Split Zone Duo podcast made a really good point, basically saying, look, the last 6 months have felt about as far away from football as possible. And that's a point that I've made a whole lot, right? The reason why we love college football, the reason why we love, going to these games, we have attachments to these universities. We want to see these teams do well and succeed because we went to school there, we grew up rooting for them or whatever it is. And we like going to the games and we like watching the games on TV. I love my Saturday afternoons, just sitting on my butt, watching the games, betting on the games, all that kind of stuff. You could argue that's probably not the spirit of the game, but I love it. I love having constant, college football on all the time, whatever it is, however you may like it, whatever. The last 6 months have really felt like a huge departure from that. And I think it's completely true. And so I think the one thing I'd like to say is we're going to start team previews here really soon. We're going to profile. I think we're going to do all 14 is the goal. And by 14, I mean, we're going to include the incoming schools. So just kind of give you all a feel for them going into 2022 as they transition, obviously, in 2023. But we're going to preview everybody. And that's going to be us talking ball, getting ready for the season. I'm really excited. I'm just pumped to do it. These conversations though, about realignment and whatnot are going to continue. It's just part of the deal now. And it sucks. It's not what we signed up for. Unfortunately, we watch Fox and we watch ABC and we watch ESPN and we watch, CBS, and these are the power brokers and they're making deals and the conferences want to gain strength within those deals. And, it's causing our sport to head in a direction that a lot of people, myself included, are uncomfortable with. I don't think anybody was uncomfortable. Well, some people might have been, but I wasn't uncomfortable with NIL when it happened, right? I mean, you think about, we're talking about USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten, in which that's going to give the schools maybe $100 million a year to be distributed amongst them. And guess who doesn't, I know that say, the facilities and their meals and their books, whatever. Yeah, but it's the only business in this country where the people who make it actually make the sport happen are not getting the actual, and this is all college sports, are not getting the actual financial benefits at all. I know you might say it's professional. Yeah, but I mean, this is a gigantic industry. It is a massive industry. Billions and billions of dollars are spent on college football, and the players actually don't see any of it. So NIL was good because, they're not getting direct profits, in the form of a player compensation, but they now, people can say, hey, I want this player to represent my brand, my company, whatever it is. And it's really good. It's positive. I know a lot of athletes getting opportunities across all sports for, local clothing brands or pizza joints, or, let's just even take Bijan Robinson, for example, things like Lamborghinis, right? Stuff like, that's awesome. It might be not your taste, but I think it's freaking awesome. So, I'm not, it's not like, again, I'm against NIL. I was a fan of it, but ever since that, things changed. I feel like it was a huge inflection point. And I think everybody just got more comfortable making more money off these kids now because cat was out of the bag. Kids can make some money at least. So now we don't feel awful about exploiting them, as they have been for a long time. This is to say, this is kind of getting to, to what I'm talking about today, like stuff that makes me uncomfortable to talk about. I've not really enjoyed having to talk about basically making the Pac-12 go away. That's not something I really enjoyed talking about. I will say this, like, when we talk about conference realignment, we talk about the Big 12's position, their desire to snatch up Oregon and Washington or the Four Corner schools or both is paramount to me because from a business perspective, it could eliminate one competitor, the Pac-12 competing conference, and it will strengthen your position with those schools, those brands, whenever we're talking about the next round of either, I guess maybe conference realignment or college football playoff expansion, or what does college football itself become in general. That would be really a really important move the Big 12 could make, in my opinion, is poaching those schools and essentially eliminating the Pac-12. I don't want to, once again, hate to be like that, but that's the best thing to do. What's happened here, and it's been really interesting, is I've seen a lot of comments about the cultural fit of Pac-12 schools with the Big 12. And I know, look, some of y'all complain about me like not getting the point in videos. I just wanted to preface all of this by saying that stuff before because, like, this conversation is kind of in the category of I wish we weren't talking about Big 12, Pac-12 cultural differences so we could just talk about the football on the field and how excited we are to watch a football season. Because I'll tell you what, guys, after all the moving and shaking, it's another season where I'm really excited just to watch the football again. But that aside, a lot of you all had mentioned like the cultural differences between the Pac-12 schools and the Big 12 schools and why you maybe wouldn't want the Pac-12 schools in the league and, leave them by themselves just because of, maybe the way that either we view them as I think the perception might be too liberal or too, it's all about academics and maybe some of the positions of people at these schools aren't, don't align with our personal politics, I guess. And maybe one way to put it. And vice versa. Maybe, those schools, I know there has been some hesitation for some of those schools to join leagues in which there are religiously affiliated, or run, I guess, universities because there's some differences there, right? We've got BYU, we've got Baylor, we've got TCU. Love all three of those schools. I understand maybe the hesitation on that side too. What I'd like to say about all of this stuff is think about last year. Think about when Oklahoma and Texas got poached, right? I mean, I've mentioned this last week and I'll mention this again. Like, as somebody who worked at Sirius XM and as somebody who worked a lot on the Big 12 channel, along with Robbie Triano, who's been on here a lot, has been awesome and joined us a lot and has got great perspective. Like, he and I were really concerned about, our futures working. And that's a very difficult thing to deal with. And there are tons of people who are the same way. And it was just, it was a punch to the gut and it was really awful to deal with. But like, that's the reality of this. And a lot of the Pac-12 people felt the same way when UCLA and USC decided they were going to take a hike, right? And so I've mentioned this a bunch. I don't want Oregon State and Washington State to like go away. If I had it my way, we'd stay with the conferences or we'd bring those schools in. But like those schools have not been mentioned once. And my whole point about saying this is like, all I care about is the success of the Big 12. I tweeted this the other day, and I mean, I want other schools to stay alive too, but like, generally speaking, I'm focused on the Big 12. This is the Locked On Big 12 podcast. I tweeted the other day about what had happened, and I said a lot of fans against Pac-12 teams in the Big 12 because of cultural differences. And I just mentioned USC and UCLA and Big Ten schools. They might, stress academics, but they don't have many cultural similarities. Think about Los Angeles to Bloomington, Indiana, right? Now, I know a lot of these universities are liberal universities. People at universities tend to be liberal. Like, I think there's a big perception out there. There is a bigger stress on academics, I guess, and for a lot of these schools. And I think that kind of translates to some kind of, left-leaning politics is kind of the perception there. Anyway, I decided I want Big 12 schools to have money and survive. Who cares about politics? And once again, I care about the Big 12, but I would like as many people as possible to come along. Now, as Brett Yormark said, I'm looking to make this conference to give it as much value as possible. So once again, that point of, everybody has a seat at the table, I don't feel too confident about that. And I wish it was that way, but it's not. So we have to think about it that way. That's why I'm saying, like, I don't care at all about what Stanford or Cal or Oregon or Washington might think about Baylor and TCU. Like, if that stuff precludes them from joining our conference, then okay, I'm sorry. Like, you're going to make your bet on that. Oregon and Washington might be fine. Hell, Stanford and Cal might be fine too. All right. But if I'm the Big 12 and I'm those schools, I cannot let these differences stop me from staying alive in football. I mean, hell, maybe you care about that stuff a lot more than football, but let's be honest, football is driving a lot of decisions here. And there are a lot of people who care about Oregon and Washington and Utah and Arizona State and Colorado, and they want to see those programs succeed and be okay and be all right. And so I think putting aside politics is the best thing that we can do, or differences, best thing we can do. Like, take care of that stuff down the road when it happens. We'll worry about that bridge when we cross it. But Brett Yormark's mandate right now is to add as much value to this conference as possible. You know what part of that is going to be? Eliminating the Pac-12. That's one less major conference. That will be more TV people will come to you because there is one less league that is providing what we perceive to be a Power 5 level of football. There are 5 right now, right? I don't think there's any debate. The Big 12 is still a Power 5 league. And I still think, I really believe this, that after OU and Texas are gone, it will remain to be a Power 5 league. You'll say, Josh, you're biased. Yeah, I am biased, but I think, we've had enough proof in the pudding with Cincinnati and BYU. I mean, BYU basically ran the Pac-12 South last year, when it going undefeated against those schools. And, obviously Houston's coming in. Houston, it could be a giant. UCF, obviously, all these schools are G5, so they're playing at a Power 5 level. You include that with the Oklahoma States of the world, the Baylors of the world. TCU, obviously, not as good recently, but think about the rise they had. And, TCU was not a Power 5 team before, but was there any debate when they were on that rise of Gary Patterson if they were that quality? No. Rose Bowl? No. And nobody's doubting them. And so they made that jump to the Big 12. It was pretty seamless because we'd seen them on that big stage. Cincinnati's a Power 5 level school. We know this now. This is for sure. BYU is Power 5 level. UCF is Power 5 level. Houston is Power 5 level. All of these schools are Power 5 level schools. And so I believe this is a Power 5 league, but there's a way that you can make it not the Power 5 anymore. And one of the places that you can get top level conference football could be the Big 12. And that's what I'm saying here is the best thing the Big 12 can do is take those schools, crush the Pac-12. And when I say crush the Pac-12, I mean the umbrella of the Pac-12. I want the schools to be successful. Do not get me wrong. I want everybody's schools to be successful. The entity that is the Pac-12 be going also, a little bit of retribution for them saying, why do we take any of the Big 12 schools? Well, it could happen to you one day. It's happened to the Pac-12, where you need that lifeline. So the Big 12 now finds themselves in a position of strength. I would hate it for something those schools wouldn't like us having religious institutions there, here. So, and we might have some differences down the line with a place like a Washington or a Oregon. Some of our schools might have some philosophical differences. So we're going to pass up on 2 of the best brands in college football. I've got it pulled up right here, folks. That Andy Staples Wheel of 24 that I always mention, the 24 power programs. Here it is. It's based on what TV programmers would want on their inventory. 24 schools that add the value. Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, Florida State, Florida, Georgia, Iowa, LSU, Miami, Michigan, Michigan State, Nebraska, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Oregon, Penn State, Tennessee, Texas, A&M, USC, Virginia Tech, Washington, and Wisconsin. As it stands right now, once again, it's not based off quality. This is based off of television ratings and what those programmers would want. So what I'm saying here is the Big 12, once OU and Texas leave, are going to have no teams on that list. If you have, and I'm not saying they have the opportunity for sure to get to end up getting Washington and Oregon. That's not a foregone conclusion. but I would hate for you to lose that opportunity for something like cultural differences. They're not going to ruin the league. They're going to be two of the better brands in the league, and good brands from Utah and Colorado and Arizona and Arizona State too. Like, I mean, I actually thought I'm blanking. Austin Heaney, who we had on before from Wide Right and Natty Light, came on. He came on a while ago, but I asked. He responded to that tweet and said, "I actually, I think that Utah and Arizona State and Colorado actually, are a bit more closer culturally to what we've got going on in the Big 12." And I mean, Colorado obviously evidenced by that them being a school. It's it's been in this conference before, and then obviously Utah. We're going to the Utah now with BYU. It would make a good fit, and then also Arizona State, like, are southern schools. I know it's not like the South, but like they are a southwestern part of the United States. We've got schools who used to be part of the Southwestern Conference. Part of Texas is very southwestern as well. So, and obviously we've got plenty of schools that populate that state. So, like, I think that's a really good point. I think it's a very strong point, those schools, for sure. But when it comes to schools like Cal and Stanford and Washington and Oregon, if Brett Yormark and the brass at the Big 12 think that those schools add value either in a television way or in a programming way, or a down the line, our conference will have more good brands. So if we go to a super league, they might include us type way, or, maybe get us more spots at the dance for a college football playoff type way, then I would want those schools in, and I would hate for something like perceived cultural differences to stop it. I understand qualms on both sides. I'm not going to insult any of you guys out there. I just could not disagree more. You all are all entitled to your opinions, and I appreciate you guys commenting on this. But I mean, people in the mentions this tweet, the replies this tweet, were talking about universities being really liberal, and talking about which schools were liberal, which ones are not. The word bigot was used. The word GOP was used. And what I'm trying to say, people, is like, put that stuff aside. Put all of that aside, because this is not about politics right now. This is about business. Our league almost got gutted once because of what happened with OU in Texas. I would hate to go anywhere near that situation again. Would really not like to do that. So that is why I'm telling you all, I think it's important that we put this stuff aside and try to make something happen with those schools. And I hope they target Oregon and Washington before they join an ACC. And ACC, Lord knows, the ACC needs to try and strengthen that position right now, because, I mean, the Big 12 is in a better expansionary phase right now. Think about it like this: the number of the big conferences have said, we don't want your schools. Now, maybe KU gets poached by the Big 10, and maybe somebody calls for Oklahoma State and Baylor. We'll cross that bridge. We hope not, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But the ACC is locked into a bad television contract, and they've got schools that people think other conferences want, right? Miami, FSU, alongside of Clemson. People don't think the SEC wants them. Virginia Tech, Virginia. People think the Big 10 want them. Carolina and Duke. Somebody's going to want that rivalry, that branding. I mean, forget football, right? Good Lord, basketball. I mean, those two schools are college basketball. Sorry, Kansas fans. I mean, the best. You could argue the best rivalry in all of sports is Kansas, Missouri. Not true. Is Duke, Carolina. All of sports. Like, it is the Red Sox, Yankees of college sports. Is a fantastic rivalry. I love watching those games. They're always fantastic. It's amazing. Somebody's going to want that. Also, they're really good academic schools. They probably fit in the Big 10. So like, that's what I'm saying here is the ACC is in a weird spot where they might get poached. The Big 12's time to strike is now. No Big 12 teams are going to leave for the Pac-12. No ACC teams are leaving for the Pac-12. No Super 2 conference teams are leaving for the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is vulnerable. The Pac-12, just gotta have a workout, friends. The Pac-12 is vulnerable, and that's why the Big 12 should strike. I do not care about perceived politics, whatever it is out there. I'm sorry, folks. I know you all care. I do not. Make the deals, strengthen the league. That's what it's all about. Guys, whatever you're all afraid of, I promise it's going to work out in the end, because the conference will still be around, and we'll still have things like Iowa State football or Kansas State football or West Virginia might, I think there's rumors they might go somewhere else, but like, West Virginia football, Houston football. I don't care. Hell, you might think that the damn liberals over there at Cal and Stanford have no idea what they're talking about, and they'd be poisonous to the conference. Or I'll even say, the damn liberals over there at Washington and Oregon don't know what they're talking about. And they probably say, hey, those Southern conservative hicks, we want nothing to do with those people and their religious affiliated universities. Okay. All right. But if either party were to not make the deal because of those things, it would be dumb. They'd be spitting on their fan bases. They'd be telling their fan bases, you don't matter. Because what do you want? You want football. You want basketball. You want baseball. And you want to do it at the highest level. We've talked about this a bunch. I will say it again. I will not care about Alabama football if my school can't compete with Alabama football, right? The whole point of Cincinnati making it was they got to go play with the big boys, and they made a really good accounting of themselves. Well, if they told Cincinnati after we saw them make a college football playoff in a season where they beat a Notre Dame, and we told them, sorry, thanks for coming, you can't play. You're not even allowed to not even say thanks for coming. You can't play at all. That would not be good. So once again, point on this, put aside your cultural differences. They will not ruin the league to be here. And whatever barriers there are, we will cross them once they're in the league and we're all making money and we're all taken care of and everybody's okay. All right, quick word from the sponsors, and then we'll hit on some comments from Greg Sankey and get out of here. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn, folks. LinkedIn is a spot. It's a great place to search for jobs. Over 810 million people are on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn Jobs will help you guys find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Every single week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. And post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right. So I saw a comment today, and this kind of goes to what we're talking about, that Greg Sankey made. Well, he did talk about OU in Texas. We can get to that in a little bit here, but I'm not really, I'm not like dead set on the, we've been going around this for forever, and you guys also don't like to hear about OU in Texas all the time, so I'm not going to say it. There were some comments that he made about, like values, about, whether the, or priorities. And I think there's some thoughts maybe from Greg Sankey that, hey, he kind of addressed the elephant in the room. Are the same values, and I know we've been talking about values whenever, for all the conferences the same because of the revenue differences, right? He had mentioned the revenue differences. And then he also talked about a at-large spot in the college football playoff. I disagree. That's earning your way in. A committee arbitrarily picking a teams is the opposite of that. Winning a conference is the definition of earning your way in. There's a lot of thoughts. Let's see, I'm trying to just go through all this stuff right now. And then the Oklahoma and Tech stuff. Oh, here he goes. I'll wink and I'll say that we can even accommodate a 10-game conference schedule. I see all of you looking up. I just wanted to see if you were paying attention. Andy Staples said he's kidding, but at this point, who knows? All right. So also the conversation too about OU in Texas, he said that's completely an OU in Texas leaving thing. He says, that's what we're talking about. That's going to be on them to figure out. Now, obviously, we know that's not true. USC and UCLA don't go and join the Big Ten without the approval, the thumbs up from a place like Fox. That's kind of got to be the people who end up signing off on this. So we know television is involved. We know the conference is involved. And also we talked about this too. I know John Williams believes that OU could come up with the money if possible, but it feels like from all the talk that Texas could cut the check, OU could not at this moment. Now, once again, I think it's a very, really valuable thing for the SEC to do, to be able to come in and grab OU in Texas and have their full complement of teams as they head into the into 2024. So right when the Big Ten will get their full complement of teams, but it's going to cost them. And that's what Brett Yormark said. Brett Yormark said, "Look, we'll sit down. We'll talk about it, man. Like I'm willing. I'm waiting. We'll do it." But he is going to he's mentioned it's got to be good for the conference, and that means you got to pay the piper on the way out. And I think actually the USC and UCLA addition to the Big Ten has actually helped the Big 12 in the way I just mentioned. If it makes the SEC more desperate to get OU and Texas in earlier, that could jack up the price. All right, we know you want these two schools faster, so you guys can have your full league. Because here's the thing, Big 12 is going to make money with those two schools in the league if they stay in the league, right? make it worth our while to take them out of the league. That's what you have to do. Make it worth us, to let them go to you all, because we have until 2025. So that's one way the USC UCLA move has actually maybe strengthened the Big 12 position. And at worst, it hasn't hurt it at all. But it's going to speed up those conversations and potentially put the Big 12 in a good financial spot. So we'll see what happens there. All right, one more word from our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline and BetOnline.net. Go to BetOnline today. You guys can bet on who will win the Big 12 in 2022. You can bet on who will win every single conference in 2022. Bet on those conferences. Get your tickets this year, because those conferences probably won't look the same next year. We already know a few of them won't. So go to BetOnline and BetOnline.net today to bet on that. The Major League Baseball Home Run Derby is tonight as well. You guys can go check that out. BetOnline and BetOnline.net. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, that will do it, folks. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at LOBig12. Follow me at @JoshNeighbors_. Please, please, please subscribe, like, comment. I really enjoy interacting with you all. All right, it's great. Find the show wherever you guys get your podcast and here on YouTube as well. Till next time, my friends, as always, stay safe.